Welcome to Think Twice, Rocker Advice. I'm your host, Elijah. Have you been keeping up with Punch the Monkey? Got a few thoughts on Punch the Monkey. First of all, who named Punch the Monkey? Did they name him beforehand? You know what I'm saying? Like, did they name him in such a way to set him up for failure that anyone they'd introduce to him, it would sound like an instruction. Hey, punch the monkey, and perhaps that's why he's getting bullied so much. I don't know if that's the case or not, or if they saw he was getting bullied, so they were like, let's call him Punch because everyone's punching at him. Either way, I feel sorry for the monkey. I feel sorry for the plight that he's been on, for the journey that he's been on. Perhaps you can identify with his journey. You feel like everywhere you go, you've been rejected, you've been punched, and not even given a plushy little monkey to comfort your tender soul with. I do feel for Punch the Monkey. And here's where we are right now. While I'm recording this, I'm seeing footage of, for the last few days, I've been seeing footage of kinder treatment of Punch the Monkey from other monkeys. But I question, just like everybody else, I'm not the first one to express this, but I question the motive. I question the integrity. I question the purity of these new monkeys coming on, and all of a sudden, now that he's famous, now that he's got some prestige, now that he's got some hits on his social media, probably a blue check by his name, now they're coming along and they're being kind to Punch the Monkey. I needed to see that before. I needed to see someone stand up for him before the world was on his side. And all of a sudden now they're not punching the monkey, but they're embracing the monkey. If I find out that Punch has been has given away his power of attorney to some of these new monkeys because they're being kind, I'm going to be so mad. I'm going to be so mad. Hope you're doing all right today. I'm going to share a few thoughts that I had come in on some a post I made earlier, and I guess the topic we're going to cover today is the topic of divorce, because a couple of people have hit me up because I posted something about a response to the biblical reference that says God hates divorce. Now, you don't have to be a Bible scholar, you don't have to be a Christian, you don't even have to believe in God for this episode to possibly connect with you, because there are so many people that relate with the process and the experience of getting a divorce. And I want to just address that because that is something that we need advice on helping us get through and walking through. I can say this, it may not be the best testimony, but I've been divorced twice. Relationship advice from the guy who's been divorced twice. But I will say that both of my exes and me, we have relationships that are friendly. No one's at each other's throat. There's not this big demise and this big, that isn't the case with those. And so my hope is to help people understand today, possibly some goal setting in what you may want to accomplish when it comes to divorce, especially when you have kids. Now, let's go back, because the problem some people have with me expressing any of this is that God hates divorce, is what the Bible says. And the Bible actually does say that. But let me just say this. The Bible also says there's 6 things that God hates, yea, 7 that he despises. And so there's a list of different things that if we don't measure up, that God is like, you missed the mark on that. And missing the mark is actually the definition of the word sin. You ever heard that word, sin? You've sinned against God. Sin simply means missing the mark. It's an archery term that they got from back then, and it simply means missing the mark. That means there is a mark, there is a target goal, and when we shoot for it and we miss it, when we completely lose aim, when we're completely a different direction with where we're hitting in life, where we're striking in life, that's what sin is. It's missing the mark. And when we fail in the area of divorce, when we fail in the area of gluttony, when we fail in the area of don't be drunk, and not just don't drink, but don't be a drunkard. So that's not the same thing. Jesus' first miracle was he was a bartender and he turned water into wine, and the wine was better wine than they had all week. They said usually they save the worst for last, but you've given us the best, and that's that Jesus vintage wine. So there's many areas that we can miss the marks. Over 600 of them, actually. We talk about the 10 commandments, but it's not just 10, it's 613 commandments that we can miss the mark in. And divorce is one of the things on the list that if you find yourself now you have not succeeded in having a successful marriage. Now, usually at this point, someone else is pointing to the other spouse or the ex, and we'll talk about calling them the ex in a minute, but they're pointing to them and saying it's their fault because they misused the trust, they were abusive, they were narcissistic, that can all exist. I'm not debating with you or anyone else on the reasonings for this happened, or possibly it just didn't work out and you walked away and then later on you realize, wait a minute, it says God hates this process. God hates divorce. Does that mean I'm in bad standing with God? No, let me say that anytime God hates something, it's because he hates the result of what it brings to your life. So God never hates the person who misses the mark, or some would say God doesn't hate the sinner, he hates the sin. But a way to really put that phrase into how it should be heard is God doesn't hate the person who misses the mark, but he hates the mark being missed because of what it produces in our life, especially when it comes to co-parenting our kids together. Because one, divorce hurts. Let's just say it's one-on-one, no kids involved. Divorce hurts. Why? Because it's a separation and there's an exit wound. Anytime you see a bullet wound, it'll be clean in the front, but you turn that character over that got shot and the exit wounds rip out all kinds of stuff that was way more damaging. And that's what happens in any kind of untethering, ungluing of two becoming one. There's a glue, and then and when that glue, it rips parts of each one apart. And even though we know, like, oh, we're better off not together, and that could be the reality, there's still a tearing away, and there's still an injuring, there's still a exit wounds that we have to go through in that process, and that's hurtful emotionally, psychologically, mentally, spiritually. It takes its toll on us. So God hates that we have to go through that process. And then if we are parenting children together, that process is not we just separate and go to our own corners and never discuss it anymore. Now we are with that person. We are stuck with that person. That's why we should be careful who we choose. But we're with that person at least until those kids turn 18, because we're trying to co-parent, unless one just checks out, and then you have to go from there. But that doesn't make it any easier. It makes it different, but it doesn't make it any easier. And so God hates that now we're in the position where this person is talking about this person, and the kids are in the middle having to listen to each one of them. So I'm going to encourage you today. First, try your best, no matter what situation you're in, because you can't do anything about what anyone else does, but you do have control over how you respond to what they do. And why that's important is because you have to look beyond yourself, your emotions, your feelings, and you have to look at your children, because the violation, most likely, the violation didn't happen to the children. Yes, if they loved the whole family, then they wouldn't have done this thing, and how could you do all that exists, but really the violation, what I found is the violation wasn't even toward you. It affected you, but the violation was something that they did because of the insecurities that they have in their life. They weren't complete. They weren't mature. And I'm saying if it worked out like that, you could be the one listening to this and say, oh, I'm the one that cheated. I'm the one that was narcissistic. I'm the one. And if that's you, take ownership of that today. But let's say it wasn't you. You still have to deal with, how do I navigate through where I can still allow the children to have an experience with their other parents without me hindering that. Now, they may not be treating you the same in that way, but all you can do is identify that their behavior is ugly, their behavior is not positive, and whatever you do, you don't want to double that up for the children. I know this is a hard one because we want to retaliate. When people hurt us, we want to hurt them back out of a defense and out of a response. But this is why we need God's help as we navigate through, because we've missed the mark in this area for whatever reason, and now we're navigating through. We need the inward witness of the Holy Spirit to lead us, guide us, and direct us in every step as we move forward toward the exodus of this relationship, and we can navigate how to raise these kids in a peaceful environment, and we can teach them that they can honor that parent that has dishonored us. That's what Christianity looks like. Now, if you're in here and you're like, I'm not a Christian, I'm not a person that even believes in God, and I can do whatever I want, so can Christians. Everyone has free will. We can do whatever we want, however we want. I'm just saying, for the betterment, for the best interest of the children. If you've ever been through mediation, you've heard that term before. In the best interest of the children, how can I do this the most successful way? Let's just look at the topic of marriage biblically. In the Old Testament, people would get married between, starting around 12 years old, between 12 and 18 for the females, and the males between 18, usually they were a little older, and there's a reason for that. I'm going to tell you in a minute. 18 to mid-20s, and the reason for that was the girls generally were prepared for marriage, or what we would say as prepared for marriage, once they hit puberty, where they were able to reproduce. Their body was functioning in the way where it had the best response to be able to have children and recover from having children and produce the most children, because you have youth on your side and you have years ahead of you. Now we hear that age and we're like, what? That is disgusting. I understand that we feel like that, but culturally, from the beginning of time, it was so that people were popping out babies earlier. It is believed that Mary and Joseph, it's believed that she was 14 when she had Jesus. Now, the reason guys were a little older is because they didn't wait till puberty. What they waited for was to have stability in what it is they do for a livelihood or financially. And so by the time they were 18 through mid-20s, that's when they were prepared to be able to take care of a family. And so that was and why so early? Well, it just is what it is, but one of the reasons culturally also was people only lived between 40 and 45 years back then. And so culturally, you did not have a lot of time ahead of you. You had to get in what you had to get in, what you wanted to get in life ahead of time, because it wasn't like now where we're living to 100 years old. It was 40 to 45 years old. So if you're going to have kids, if you're going to have a family, it would start earlier. And we are the ones over time that dumbed down a generation. In every other culture before the United States came around, young men were considered to be grown men and and capable people at 13 years old. I don't know if you know that or not, and then mentally, of course, we had to catch up, and then men had to stabilize themselves and secure themselves to a point, and that usually was between 18 and 25. I'm not saying that's how it should be today. I'm just saying that is the origin of marriage, the history culturally of marriage. And so now people get married. Now people are they're getting married a little older. I was in my mid-20s whenever I got married for the first time, and we started having children, and married for 20 years. Married for 20 years, and once again, a great relationship with both of my exes. The second marriage was a quick marriage, and we didn't make it through COVID, but we're still friendly. There's no animosity, and that's the way it should be. So let me talk to you real quick about one, when it's concerning the way that you call. Isn't it weird that we can't even call someone that we were signing up to spend the rest of our life with. We can't even call them by their name. We have to call them by X, like the most harsh. That's my ex. They don't even deserve to be called a name. How we can start working internally toward peace, not because they deserve it, and I'm talking about just in general, okay? I'm not talking about my experience, but not because anyone deserves it, but because we deserve to walk in peace when it comes towards our feelings toward other people, okay? So we can actually still refer to them by their name, and if that's something that you don't want to do, maybe it's a goal that you can have in your mind of one day I want to be at so much peace where they mean so little to me. They affect me so little. Not that they are little, but they affect me in such a little way that I can allow them to have an identity again. And it doesn't pull from me. It doesn't take from me that they can be somebody on this earth too. It doesn't take from me that God actually wants to bless them also on this earth. Ooh, I know those are harsh words, but that is the truth. God created all of us with an intent to prosper us and bless us and give us a good life and give us grace and give us forgiveness. And so we have to at least within ourselves say, I'm willing to see that as a potential, and I'm going to try to stop just referring to them as a nobody, as my ex, but as a person, okay? You may not want to do that. You don't have to do that. I'm just here on this podcast to give advice on how you can think twice, not just think of it in one way, but think of it in different ways. Look at this mountain from different angles. Look at this coin from both sides and say, what do I want in my life? And if peace is something you want in your life in this area, that is one thing that you can shoot for. Also, identifying that God is not mad at you. He hates what you're having to go through and what your family's having to go through as a result of missing the mark in this area. I hope these thoughts help. My name's Elijah. I'm your host. Thank you for joining me on Think Twice Rocker Advice. I love you guys. Leave a comment, review, all that stuff. You say mean things, I'll just delete you. That's how I am. Bye.